Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of TLFC. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at some English football. So we're going to take a look at the Premier League season, which is coming to a close here, and we're going to go ahead and make our predictions on which three teams are going to go down and get relegated to the EFL Championship. Likewise, we're going to look at which three teams we think are going to get promoted to the Premier League this season. So it's that time to make some predictions, so we're going to go ahead and make some predictions. Before we do that, I wanted to thank everybody. We just hit 500 subscribers, which is insane. Honestly, I really appreciate it, you guys. Every single time I get a subscriber, I get insanely motivated to do this. So we are going to go ahead and do a giveaway when we get to 1,000 subscribers. Stick around for the end of the video. It'll be in the end of that. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and take a look at promotion and relegation for the Premier League and EFL Championship for the 23-24 season. Let's go. So how exactly does relegation and promotion work? So for those of you who aren't aware, every single year in the Premier League, the bottom three teams get dropped to a lower league known as the EFL Championship, where they'll compete the following year. And then the top two teams from the EFL Championship are automatically promoted to the Premier League, while positions 3 through 6 have to compete in a playoff at the end of the season to determine who the third team will be to join the top two teams and be promoted to the Premier League. So this happens in every single tier of the English soccer system, which is a big tier system, big pyramid, and it can honestly spell disaster for clubs. If you get relegated from the Premier League, you lose millions of dollars in advertising and sponsorship revenue from TV sponsors and, just sponsors in general, because you get millions upon millions of eyes on your team in the Premier League. So when teams drop, they can tumble down the soccer pyramid when they lose that money. And honestly, teams can be in purgatory for decades. So a good example of this would be AFC Wrexham. So if you've seen the show on FX, where Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought AFC Wrexham in Wales, at the 5th tier of the English soccer, and they've been trying to bring them up through the tier system. And you can see how it affects the community. So it is a very, very big deal when teams, lose their premiership status, because it affects the entire community. So if you haven't seen that show, I highly suggest checking it out. It gives you a really good idea of the importance of promotion and relegation. And now that you guys have a decent idea, or at least a little bit of an idea of what relegation and promotion is, let's go ahead and take a look at the teams I think are going to get relegated from the Premier League this season. All right, guys, so we're approaching match day 34 in the Premier League this weekend, which means we're in the final 5 games of the 38-game season. So it's that time of year where every single point genuinely matters in these matches, and it can be the difference between staying up or going down and millions of dollars for your club. So here's a look at the bottom of the table as it currently sits, with 6 teams somewhat near the drop, in risk of being relegated. I would say 7, but unfortunately I do think Sheffield United is toast and they are going to be going down. There's just no chance of them escaping relegation, so I'm going to go ahead and immediately write them off here. In truth, I honestly think Crystal Palace,
palace made out of crystal seems mighty fragile, if you ask me.
and Brentford are probably clear too, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at their schedules anyway, just because statistically someone could catch them. So here's a look at Brentford's final 5 matches this season, and I have to say they have a relatively easy schedule to close out the season. And I think they have a couple golden opportunities to close the door on a few of these fellow sides that are at risk of relegation, especially Everton and Luton. So Palace, on the other hand, has a little bit of a harder path with the end of this season, but I think where they sit currently, 8 points clear of relegation, they have 6 games to play, they still have 1 game in hand. I think they are going to get the points necessary to stay up this season. So like I said, I more or less included Palace and Brentford in this video because statistically they could blow it, but I'd be surprised if they do. So I would say the teams that are at risk of going down are going to be Sheffield, who I'm already writing off, Everton, Nottingham Forest, Luton Town, and Burnley. So let's just start from the top and work our way down with Everton, who are 2 points above the drop right now, but they do have a game in hand with 6 remaining, while most teams only have 5 remaining. So some would argue that Everton don't really belong to be in danger here. They have had 8 points deducted this season for breaching league profit and sustainability rules, meaning they performed well enough to have about 35 points this season. But because they were deemed to have violated the league rules, they were docked some points, Now they're sitting at 27. So I personally find this kind of laughable, with teams like Man City who've been charged with over 100 of these, profit and sustainability rules, and still no punishment has been put down yet. It's obvious that the Premier League or, the FA is just kind of waiting until the end of the season so they can ride, Manchester City's run here for the title, and Manchester City's profitability with the Champions League run that they're still in. So it's a little bit hypocritical, but I digress. Let's get back into relegation and promotion. So let's take a look at Everton's remaining few matches here. As previously stated, they still have 6, and I have to say, based on this schedule and their opportunities to get points against competition near or at the bottom of the table, I do like their odds to stay up this year. So that's going to bring us to the next team on the list, which is Nottingham Forest. And Nottingham Forest are currently 1 point above the drop. So here's a quick look at the remaining matches for Nottingham Forest, and I think it honestly might come down to the final game of the season against Burnley for them. Forest has not won a match since February. And I unfortunately don't think that they are going to have enough in the tank to stay up this season. It pains me to say that. I'm cheering for them, obviously with Gio Reyna on the team and him finally getting his first start this previous weekend. It's hard for me not to cheer for Nottingham Forest, but I'm going to go ahead and say they are one of the teams that I think is going to go down this season. So now let's go ahead and take a look at Luton Town, who are currently in 18th and in the relegation zone. And honestly, they are my pick to sneak out of the relegation zone from the teams that are currently sitting in the relegation zone. They have 5 matches remaining, and I have to say, with the teams that are in this position currently, they by far have the easiest schedule remaining. I think they're going to find a way to squeeze every single drop of juice out of these last 5 games. Luton doesn't have to face any of the, big 6 teams to finish out the season. So as far as, looking at the schedule, I think that they're going to find enough points to avoid the drop here. And unfortunately, I think Nottingham's going to go down. So this brings us to our final club that is in danger of the drop, sitting in 19th, who is going to be Burnley. So Burnley is 6 points from being clear of relegation, and I just don't think they're going to be able to squeeze enough of the necessary points out in these final 5 matches. I don't see them producing a win against Manchester United, Newcastle, or Tottenham, so they would need to find draws in those matches and win against Sheffield and Nottingham, which even then I just don't think is enough considering the schedules of the other teams. So I think it's safe to say Burnley and Sheffield are pretty much locks to go down this year, and then that 3rd spot is really the spot that kind of has a little bit of leeway. But unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and pick Nottingham Forest to join Burnley and Sheffield as our 3 relegated teams this season. So now it's time to look at promotion from the EFL Championship to the Premier League. So now that we have relegation out of the way, let's take a look at the teams that have a chance of making it into the Premier League this season. So here's a look at all the teams that have a chance to go up this season, keeping in mind that places 3rd through 6th will compete in a playoff, where one team will have a chance to promote with the 1st and 2nd place teams and go into the Premier League. So we're heading into match day 44 out of 46, so there's only 3 games left. And I'm going to be honest, I think the teams that are currently in the top 6 positions are the teams that will still be in the top 6 positions come the end of match day 46. So those are the teams that we're going to focus on here. First, we're going to take a look at which teams have a chance for automatic promotion, and then we will talk about the 4 playoff teams. So incredibly, there are still 4 teams fighting for automatic promotion spots this season in Ipswich Town, Leicester City, Leeds United, and Southampton. Let's take a look at the current table leaders, Ipswich Town's remaining fixtures for the season. And I gotta say, Ipswich's path to being the champions will likely be tough, with their next 2 matches against Hull and Coventry, who are not completely out of a chance of making the playoff, and then they finish off the season against a very poor Huddersfield side, but Huddersfield's fighting relegation, so that game could really be very important for Huddersfield at the end of the season, and it could spell trouble for Ipswich. If Huddersfield absolutely needs that game, it could make it hard for Ipswich to grab those last 3 points that they need. I'm going to go ahead and say right now, I don't think Ipswich is going to get it done. I don't think they'll hold on to one of those top 2 spots, and I think they're going to find themselves in the playoff. So after Ipswich, we have Leicester City, who have been trying their best to bottle the championship this season, and they currently have 4 matches remaining. So here's a look at their 4 remaining matches. I honestly expect Leicester to get it together and close out the season strong, and I do expect them to be the championship champions this year. So I expect them to close out their games pretty well here and find a way to get it done and, take home some hardware and go back up to the Premier League. So now that I have Leicester in and Ipswich out, that leaves us with 2 teams left competing for automatic promotion, and that is going to be Leeds United and Southampton. And surprise, surprise, I'm going to go ahead and pick Leeds United. Obviously, I'm incredibly biased here. It might not happen. I'm incredibly afraid that it won't happen, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with my team. I do like our schedule coming into these last 3 games, and I love that our final game of the season is against Southampton in Elland Road. That bodes well for us. We can go in there, hopefully, potentially be in the position we need to be, where if we win that game, it gets us automatic promotion. So I really like the way it's lining up for a potential, great game to end out the season with a lot of anxiety for me. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Leeds to be the automatic promotion team with Leicester City. And then now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the playoff between 3rd place and 6th. All right, guys, so in honor of not dragging this video out into oblivion, I'm not going to go over every single playoff match here. I'm just going to pick who I think is going to win the playoff. And I'm actually going to go with Norwich. So the reason I'm going to go with Norwich is because they always seem to find a way to get back into the Premier League. It's amazing how many times in the last 20 years they've been promoted and then relegated again. I think it's something like 5 or 6 times. It's actually insane how many times they've managed to get back in the Premier League. So I'm going to go with them just for that reason alone. And also, I wouldn't mind seeing another American back in the Premier League in Josh Sargent. So that's who we're going to go ahead and pick. We're going with Leicester City as champions, Leeds as runners-up, and then Norwich City to win the playoff and promote back into the Premier League this season. All right, guys, so that's going to do it. I hope you liked my predictions. They're kind of tough to call, honestly. I think I did a pretty good job, but we'll see by the end of the season. Hoping that Leeds can stay up. If you stuck around this long, we're going to go ahead and talk about the giveaway. So when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're going to be giving away this Cristiano Ronaldo Tag 10 graded card. And then we're going to be giving away this Lionel Messi Inferno Parallel, which will also be graded by Tag by the time we get to the 1,000 subscriber mark. So if you like soccer cards, if you like Messi and Ronaldo, and you want something free, please subscribe down below. But anyway, thank you guys so much for sticking around and watching another video. We will see you next Friday with another one. Take care, guys. Bye.